All right, here we go. So this is the debate format for tomorrow and then next week. So remember, there's one thing is this is paper and these are pens. Yes, you're going to want to use those to take notes during the debate. I can't do it because I'm playing both debaters. This is going to be toxic family members. Get rid of them. And then when I put the hat on, it's going to be toxic family members. Got to keep them around. Okay, so I can't write notes for myself and read everything. So the topic is the main character's father belittles his son by saying things like, "Aren't you a little too old to be a father?" and questioning if there's any money in that when he asks his daughter-in-law about her occupation. So basically the debate topic is, should we continue to be close with toxic family members or should we separate ourselves? So 如果有不好的家人，就是要跟他就是保持距离嘛，还就是有可能就是要怎么说分段那种关系，还是就是你有可能要想办法，就是虽然那个家人很有问题，有可能你的爸是有情绪的问题，还是你妈有一些问题，就是要想办法解决，还是有可能就是没办法，就是改不了这些事情是改不了，但是不要就是分段那个关系，因为那个后果会太大。So that's basically what we're talking about for what the topic is. Now, the rules are 2-2-1-1, right? So remember 都是就是一边，所以你还是老师，你有2分钟可以算是演讲，就是讲你的主题、你的看法什么的，然后提供一些证据。So you want to provide some data or some type of like expert or something. Don't just the whole time. 我是觉得我有这种看法，我认为no. Right? You don't need numbers，不一定要数据，但是一定要做一些研究。So have something to show me, yeah. That you actually looked into this topic. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to start 2 minutes. This is going to be why we need to separate ourselves from toxic family. Well, I have a couple of beliefs that first off, toxic family members are bad for our health. And a great example is COVID lockdowns, 封城, yes? People actually suffered mentally and physically because they were trapped inside homes with, abusive family members. And basically, the evidence I've seen is that by separating ourselves, we become healthier mentally. And actually, when our brains are healthy, we feel physically healthier and we live longer lives. So there's this one article in Forbes. It was basically entitled "Toxic Influence," and said that 80% of Americans have experienced emotional abuse. 都是情感的那个虐待. I don't know what it's specifically called in Chinese. But basically, toxic people, they do bad things to us. They manipulate us. They get us to do what they want. They make us feel bad about ourselves. And they're just negative to be around, yeah? There's this idea that, like, being around toxic family members is draining. Yeah? It makes our lives harder. 都是你要跟他们一起陪他们，其实会让你的人生更辛苦，而且人生已经很累, right? So life is already very difficult, and then you have a toxic family member to make it even worse. And then there's this interesting study also done in Forbes. The American Psychological Association found that 75% of Americans say their boss is the most stressful part of their day. And basically, when you have this stress in your life, it leads to high blood pressure and depression. Now, the thing is, this is bosses. Bosses were around 8 hours a day, yeah? But toxic family members, you're always around them. 你回到家，那个人还在, right? 你周末的时候，那个人还在, right? So this is a problem. We can leave our bosses at work, but we can't get rid of our toxic family members unless we separate the relationship. And there's also a study by the Chicago Heart Association that found that high blood pressure led to at least 2.2 years of lost life. So basically, you're going to live 2 years shorter just because you have higher blood pressure. And that's just a little bit. If you have a lot of high blood pressure, like really, really high rate, it could be up to 12 years. So you're going to live a shorter life, right, and a less healthy life because you're around toxic family members. And then also, too, there's another study in medical news today that found that 1 in 5 people with heart failure had depression. So our hearts are actually less healthy because we're sad, right? So we're sad, that affects our heart. So basically, overall, I just feel that we need to sometimes get rid of toxic family members because they make our minds less healthy, and then that makes the rest of our body less healthy. Thank you. All right. Now I'm going to go into the opposite mode. I'm going to use a bad Western accent. Okay, So this is the topic of stay close, keep toxic family members around. Basically, I feel that when we get rid of a toxic family member, we might ruin our relationships with other family members. So let's say I don't like my pa, I don't like my dad, yeah? And I said, hey, you're toxic, I'm gonna get rid of you. What happens? What happens with my mom? Is she gonna pick my dad, my pa, or is she gonna pick me, yeah? Or my grandparents, or children, who knows, yeah? So just because I separate them doesn't mean I get to keep everybody else. There's another thing too, it's, because if you're around your whole family, then, even if you have one bad egg, yeah, at least everybody else is pretty good. Now, because you get rid of that toxic person, you're all by yourself, being lonely is not good. And there's some statistics I'm going to show you that being lonely is not a good thing for your health, both mentally and physically. Also, too, we think that just like I've been saying before, hey, I get rid of this toxic family member, but you don't understand that there could be some bad repercussions. There could be some bad hogul, some after effects. So, for example, maybe I have to go find my own house. I'm gonna have to spend a lot more money now. Maybe I won't get as much financial support, right? So there's issues like that. Having a good family around. Let's say you lose your job. What happens if you're living by yourself? It could be a tough life. Okay. And then also, too, there's one more thing is that, COVID, mental health issues. For example, in Japan, I was seeing that it was actually more likely to die from suicide than COVID at one time. So that's a good indication that, of course, COVID is a terrible disease, but, being locked down, being away from people we love, right, not being able to go outside and socialize, that's actually a really negative thing. So we really need to think about, if we want to separate ourselves from, toxic people, is it actually good for our mental health in the long run? Now, there's a couple things, too. Basically, let's say you separate yourself from toxic family and you start living alone. Now, the dementia, right, 老人痴呆症, it increased 50%, yeah, the risk. The function, yeah? And then premature death risk of living alone is equal to smoking, obesity, and not exercising. So basically, if you're living alone, it's just like you're smoking, right? Or you're eating too much unhealthy food, you're fat. And this is a huge issue. And then also, too, you're living alone, you have higher rates of anxiety, depression, and suicide. 那种就是轻生自杀什么的, right? 然后是就是忧郁症什么的, right? You have lots of issues. Just because you're living alone. So, yeah, maybe you got rid of that annoying person, your pa, it's not around anymore, but the problem is you're by yourself and you are sad and you have lots of physical and mental health issues. There's also, too, 18 to 29-year-olds, U.S. Census Bureau, Renko Diaocha, they did some research and they found that 51% of people who lost their jobs were expecting to be fired, if you're between 18 and 29, kind of like your age, they were feeling anxious. Right, and that just shows you that if you're not living with your family and you lose your job, all of a sudden, how are you going to pay for your rent or your house, things like that? But you have a good family, even though you might have one annoying bad person, right? You got to think about the situation there. So overall, I just think that, sometimes we think, if we just get rid of that one person in our life, it's going to be better. But I think that's a little bit naive. I think we need to realize that we need to stay together and we can fix the one problem rather than getting rid of that one problem and then causing ourselves a lot more problems. Okay, now I'm going to go and start debating the guy who wore the hat, okay? And so I'd look at my notes, yeah, and I would say, well, I think that that nowadays we're starting to have, a lot less of this common structure of, mom and dad are there, grandpa and grandma live in the house. Nowadays we're starting to, have situations where we live with different friends and things like that. So I don't think that we have to worry about, being lonely and having those kind of health risks because, there's lots of ways that you can find roommates. You can live with friends. There's lots of family that will probably take you in. So I think we're having fewer and fewer of these traditional homes nowadays. And so I think that we can still get rid of that toxic family member and then find a living arrangement that we can avoid all those kind of health problems. And then also too, I think that, a toxic family member is really, really bad for us. And it's not always a really easy problem to solve. Fixing someone's bad habits can be very, very difficult because it takes so much time. And I think in the end, it's going to make us very, very tired and exhausted. And sometimes the best solution is just to cut it off and then to move on.
Well, once again, I think that there's a lot of good programs out there. You're mentioning, okay, the boss is stressful, yeah, and 80% of people have experienced emotional abuse. But most people, I've seen the same numbers, about 70 to 80% of people say that I live in a dysfunctional family. So we got to realize that our families have issues, yeah. Now, I've read research videos, things like that. The worst thing you can do is just get a divorce, because actually divorce is really bad for you in the long run, right? So if you can fix a problem, you got to fix the problem right now, right? And I think that people aren't giving themselves enough of a chance to fix the issues with toxic family members. You can go to counseling. You can try to bring other family members in it together. So I just think overall, people are just assuming, hey, toxic family members, get rid of them, and that's just super good, and that's what you see on the articles online. But once again, I don't think people are realizing that there's good mental health professionals out there that can fix problems between two people. And so overall, I just see a lot of issues about living by yourself, and I see a lot of things that people aren't considering. They're just thinking, oh, you get rid of the relationship, but I don't think they're thinking about the repercussions. Thank you. Okay, that's about it for the video. I'm going to cut it off right there. If you have any questions, let me know. That's about it, yeah. So it's already 11 something minutes, so it's only going to be about 9 or 10. Good luck.